Welcome everybody. Hi guys in the back to our last actually batter series here at the library of Chef Lo Cooks. Today we're doing cornbread just in time for the holidays. I personally love cornbread stuffing with my turkey or pretty much anything. I'll just make it as dressing to eat on the side. I like to do it with some sausage and some dried cranberries. We're not going to get that far today. We're just going to make the cornbread part. But we are going to have some good times regardless. We're going to cook two different types of cornbread. We're going to do a cheddar and jalapeno. I did get pickled jalapenos. They literally call them tamed. So hopefully that's not too spicy for everyone. It's only going to be about a half a cup for like a pretty big batch. So I think it's going to be okay. But worst case scenario, you can take a bite and be like, all right, that's enough for me. And then we're also going to do a blueberry and maple one. So that's going to have maple syrup actually in the batter and blueberries as well. And we'll talk about sort of the modifications we're making to accommodate that when we get to it. But as per usual with our batter series, the whole point and the whole kind of like miracle of batters is they're held together by eggs. That's sort of like the big sort of binder. Eggs and starch come together to make something that's really fun to play with. I mean, cornbread especially is very easy to play with because the corn itself is full of starch. It's packed with starch. So even if we didn't put eggs in there, it would probably still set up. And so, and that lets you have a lot of room to experiment, put different things in there. We're literally just adding a whole bunch of cheese to our recipe, and we're not adding anything to deal with that, and it's still gonna work fine. With the blueberries, similarly, we usually just end up adding a lot of stuff, and the batter can usually figure itself out, and will set up really well. And that's between the starch and the eggs sort of doing that magic for us. So that's why I like batters. That's why this series was kind of created. Is I love experimenting in the kitchen, but baking can be a little bit tough. And cornbread is a great place to start if you're scared with sort of baking, because it's a very easy recipe. Easy to even remember because it's pretty much just 1-1-1 down the line, but also easy to deal with in that if things get messed up, it's pretty easy to fix, and you can also add all sorts of your favorite treats in there. So without further ado, we're going to jump right in and make our first batter. Before that, I'm going to get my cast iron preheated. This is a 12-inch cast iron. Usually cornbread, and this recipe, for instance, is going to be used for making a 9-inch cast iron. So we're going to double the recipe because of the way pie works. This is about double the size of a 9-inch, even though it's only 3 inches wider. And so the first things first, I'm going to put a little bit of oil in this pan. I'm going to put it in my oven as it preheats. And you usually actually want to leave it in there for about 5 to 10 minutes after it's preheated. We want this as hot as possible. And the reason we want it really hot is we're going to pour our cold batter right in here. It's going to start cooking immediately, and that's going to get us a really, really nice, crisp bottom. And so this is kind of a more sort of classic technique. Corn cakes sort of really started as a small thing, like a pancake almost. And I've got a feeling that some cowboy was just like, I'm hungry, I want to make 10 at once, and just poured the whole thing in his pot, and that's how the first cornbread was made. But I'm sure it's a lot older than that. Usually, you get a hoe cake, I think is what they're allowed to call it, and they were literally cooked on like a hoe, like a metal hoe. You pour it over the fire, pour the batter on top, and just like a tiny little skillet, cook the cake and flip it, and that's why they were small. So I don't think there's actually a connection, but that's how I like to think about it in my head. So hoe cakes is kind of the sort of one of the starts of this. Obviously, cornbread has been around, and crushed corn as a grain and as a flour has been around for a long, long time. So I don't want to attribute it to just hoe cakes, but it's kind of, at least in America, it feels like a nice sort of like root to where these sort of came from. So we're going to jump right in. This recipe is really, really nice and easy. I like it a lot because it's equal parts flour and cornmeal. What that means is we're going to have a little bit of a drier cake because the cornmeal really is quite hydrophilic. It loves water. It's going to suck it all out of the batter, but it's going to taste a lot more like corn. It's going to be a little bit more crispy, and especially with these recipes where we're adding things in, that's going to be nice and it's going to be good for us. We want that. If I was using this for stuffing, I would actually follow the King Arthur themselves has a recipe, and it's 1 3/4 cups of flour to 1 cup of cornmeal. So it makes a larger batch, which is nice for me. When I'm making stuffing, I'll put it on a whole half sheet pan. But it also is less cornmeal, which is kind of sad, but it works better for stuffing because it holds up more. Cornmeal tends to be a more crumbly, fall apart dough. Flour tends to be a more stuck together, cakey dough that you can sort of really slather stuff on. And it works the other way too. You can also take flour and add more cornmeal, and you get something that comes closer to like a polenta, a baked polenta, but it's still going to be really tasty. It's just going to be kind of a different beast. So experiment with not only the things you're putting in here, but your ratios, and have some fun with it. That's kind of the best part about this batter particularly, is it's very, very, very hearty. And so I'm going to double these recipes because there's a lot of you guys, and I want to make sure you all get some food. And also just because we're going to do muffins for the cornbread with jalapenos, and those cook really fast. So I'm going to cook those, take them out, and then we're going to put the blueberry one in, and take that out, and then put the cornbread back in. So it's going to be a fun kind of like in and out, in and out. So we're going to make our batter all right now. So first things first, it's going to be 2 cups. Again, you guys are just doing a cup, but it's going to be 2 cups of cornmeal. And this does not have to be exact at all. That's like one of my favorite parts of any recipe is when you can just kind of like, you don't have to weigh it, you can just kind of put it in the bag and call it a day. So that's 2 cups of cornmeal, 2 cups of flour. You can use literally any flour you want. Cake flour is going to get you a sort of more smooth experience, and bread flour is going to get you a lot more gluten, so it's going to be a more sort of spongy dough. If you're doing if you have problems with this and it starts to fall apart a lot, a cake flour or a bread flour might be a good idea for you to help get some more gluten in there and help it stay together. You usually don't want to mix this too much, you just want to mix it till it's combined, but if you're putting a lot of weird things in there that are making it fall apart, that's going to be a good way. Just mix it a little bit extra, get some gluten set up. The texture is going to suffer, but at least you'll have a dough that stays together. We shouldn't have that problem today, though.
Can you use almond flour?
I wouldn't use nut flours because they tend to be very strange with the liquid amounts. You usually have to add liquid or take liquid out depending on what the flour is. If you did want to use almond flour, I would just look at a recipe up online, almond flour cornbread, because that's something I didn't research. And generally nut flours or a lot of replacement flours like chickpea and things like that, they tend to be very strange with how they interact with liquid in the recipe. And so, because a lot of the times they're dried out beans or dried out nuts that want a lot of water. So usually you have to add more, but it's not all the time you have to add more. Sometimes they're also very fluffy, so you need more flour too to counteract it, and you actually want less water. It's kind of a strange place to do. There's not really a good rule when you're working outside of the...
Okay, so you have to look up for almond flour or chickpea flour to see the
specifics.
better proportions.
And that's something that I just haven't researched myself before, but I know is definitely possible.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a liquid difference. You're going to be either using more or less milk, probably more eggs, or if you're going full vegan, it would be probably a weird sort of even more nuts where you're going to deal with flaxseed and stuff for an egg substitute, something that's going to set up really well. So cool. So we've got our flour in there, we've got our cornmeal in there. We're going to go for baking powder and baking soda in this. I like to use both, and this recipe uses both because I want you to be able to flex this recipe however you want. Usually I wouldn't use baking soda unless I was using something very acidic, and so in this case we're using milk, we're not using buttermilk, but if I was using buttermilk, the baking soda would be essential because otherwise my buttermilk would deactivate all of my baking powder and this wouldn't do its job. The baking soda sort of works as a counter to any extra acids you're putting in here. In this recipe, we're going to be putting in pickled jalapenos, so they're going to kind of work as the sour that would normally be buttermilk. And in the other recipe, we're going to be putting in blueberries, which again are going to be adding some acid in there. And so because I'm not using buttermilk, I am just using a little bit of baking soda, but if you are using buttermilk, baking soda is pretty much an essential part of the recipe. It helps to make sure it's going to rise well, even though there's a lot of acid in there working against your sort of process. And now that's not going to be as problematic if you're very quick, but if you delay it all, that initial sort of activation is going to get lost before you put it in the pan. You lose a lot of your rise. So this is just sort of an insurance, essentially. A lot of times you want to avoid too much baking soda and powder because you can taste them in the final product. They're a little bit bitter. But with this, especially, we're going to add a lot of flavors, so we shouldn't have to worry about that at all. Cool. So we're going to go ahead and put those in there now. So it is, it is 2 teaspoons of baking powder. So we're doubling this, so I'm just going to do 4. And then a half teaspoon of baking soda, and again doubling, so I'm just going to do 1. Perfect. So that's our leavening. That's what's going to make it nice and big and fluffy, and make sure it's not just a big brick of corn. Okay, cool. A little pinch of salt. You can skip this if you want to. I would recommend not, and that's even me who's in a low salt lifestyle. I did this the other day just to test it. I did it with no salt or sugar. And it was good, but it was not as good as it could be. Corn really does like a little bit of salt to flavor it. So we are going to put the salt in here. I'm just going to do, it says a pinch, but I'm doubling it, so I'm going to do about a half a teaspoon. Just enough to flavor it. It needs something a little bit more, especially this one we're going to put cheddar in there, so that'll help, but even the cheddar is going to want some seasoning to really sort of bring it all together. So there's our salt, and then that's all of our dry. So we're just going to take that, and we're just going to sort of mix that up a little bit, get the cornmeal all evenly distributed. And this is, again, one of my favorite recipes because you don't have to do anything to the wet. We're just going to crack them right in here and then mix them all together, and it's going to be beautiful. So we are going to do a flex here. we're gonna put a half cup of corn kernels in here in the savory one. I'm not gonna put that in the blueberry recipe because I want the blueberries to be the sort of physical chunks in there. I don't want to bite into some corn while I'm eating something sweet. But when I'm eating something savory like this, the cheddar's gonna melt, the jalapenos are gonna be very small and soft, so this is gonna give you some mouthfeel, and it's gonna sort of work very well texturally with the concept that we're going to. Plus, if you decide to like cut them in half and fry them, you're gonna get really nice crispy bits from it. So I'm just gonna crack this open. Uh-oh. Where did they put it? Ah. And I'm using canned corn. You can use frozen corn. Obviously, fresh corn would be the best, but we just had this laying around, and I'm like, well, I'm going to use that up.
What about cream corn?
You could put cream corn in there for sure. The big thing with that would be you're going to be adding more liquid for sure because it's kind of hard to get the cream part of that out. So just cream corn's probably maybe like I'd say half and half liquid and corn. So I would maybe just take out like if you put a cup of cream corn in, maybe take out a half a cup of milk, and you'll be able to see like. The batters especially, when it looks like a batter, it's a batter. It's going to work really good. So that would be kind of more of a feel, but I think it will work out okay.
Can you use frozen corn?
Yes, 100%. And frozen corn is actually my preferred. I would have bought some, but we just had this laying around, so I figured I'd just use it up. And I'm just going to let that drain. I just wanted to get that going, so it's ready to be added in. We're actually going to put that in right at the last second. Okay, cool. So now we're going to go for our wets. It's only one egg, which I really love about this recipe. It's very easy to remember. I have these tiny little medium eggs though, so I'm going to use 3 because again, we're doubling the recipe. And that's a really nice thing about doubling this is if you do have small eggs, that lets you just do an even amount of eggs instead of trying to cut an egg in half, which is just not a thing that you want to do. So there's a lot of different ways to crack eggs. I don't know if you guys saw, I just did the flat method there. There's also the drop method, which is a lot of fun, but it can get really messy. But if you noticed, obviously there's some on my counter, but most of that was with the egg. And it opens really, really easily. So I like that. A lot of people, you were probably taught to do it on the edge. I don't like doing that because it will usually break the yolk, or at least it can break the yolk. So for me, I'm a crack on the table. You can drop it if you're crazy, but I would never do I wouldn't do the edge anymore if you can help it. And that's sort of just my obsession with nice runny yolks. So if you don't care about the yolk, do the edge. It's the best way.
You have to do it when they have to be separated.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true. If you're like breaking it apart to like separate the yolks, that can be quite helpful. I do like there's a membrane in the egg that keeps it all together, which is why most of those methods worked without the egg just exploding everywhere. So that's kind of helpful as well. But experiment with your egg cracking techniques. So we got our egg. We're going to go for oil again. We're going to use half a cup here because we're doubling it. I've got a 1/4 cup measure, which is going to come in useful later because that's about how much we're going to put in each one of these muffin tins. 1/4 cup's a really nice measurement in batter life. I don't know if you guys remember, but that's also the size of the batter that we put in our waffles. So yeah, 1/4 cups just tends to be, it just keeps showing up over and over again. It's a very nice sort of little measurement. Okay, great, sweet. So that's our milk is next. We're gonna go ahead and put 2 cups in there. Awesome. And we're just gonna mix that up. Get it nice and battery, and then we'll put our corn in there and start our sort of next process again. Oh, that's right. See, I write these for you guys so that you can split it apart. But then when in the process, I always forget that there's more ingredients down at the bottom. So we're doing our jalapeno cheddar, which means we need sugar in this recipe. So we got a little sugar here. I'm using white sugar because it's really flavor neutral. You'll notice I'm using brown sugar and maple syrup in the sweet one because I really wanted to have that sort of heavy molassesy dark flavor. So again, it's going to be a 1/4 cup of sugar. Sugar is very contentious in the cornbread world. Any of you who've done any research into cornbreads before, some people say don't put it in at all. It's a savory dish. Some people say you have to put it in or it won't bake properly. I have confirmation that it will bake properly without sugar. I still put it in even if it is a savory dish because I like sweet and savory like a lot. I love to combo them. Where'd my spatula go? So this is a good time to talk about mise en place. Usually I'm pretty good about it and I have everything in its place where it's supposed to be. But today I've so far forgotten 2 things. So usually before I start any recipe, and you can see I've kind of done it a little bit over here, you want to get everything where it's supposed to be. Everything right within reach, somewhere that is easy to access, so that while you're cooking, you can take a phone call and still keep cooking. You don't have to go anywhere. You can be connected to the wall if you need to, because everything's going to be right there where you want it. So sugar is fun. It's kind of like a hybrid dry and wet ingredient. You can treat it as a wet, especially in cookies you treat it as a wet ingredient. It's going to melt but it's also going to solidify again when you're done, which is why cookies get nice and crispy and hard. Okay, cool. So we've got the sugar and then the jalapenos and cheddar cheese. So the cheese and the corn are going to go into the same time because they're kind of a little bit drier. We want to make sure this batter is nice and incorporated. But I'm going to put the jalapenos in now. They have that acid that's going to interact with my baking soda. So I'm going to get about a half cup of these. I'm just going to drain some of this. And it doesn't have to be exact. We're just going to chop these up nice and small. You want a small dice, just enough so you have a little bite in each one, and they're nice and flavored. Just a little bit of spice, nothing too crazy. We're also going to cook it, which is going to cook a little bit of it off as well. Generally, cooking nice hot things tends to sort of make them a little bit more mild. And then these have been cooked once when they were pickled as well, so these should be pretty easy, almost entirely flavored. If I was feeling really fancy, I'd like stack these up and try and get really nice, perfect squares. But I kind of like the idea of like a little rustic chop for our muffins. And I do want them pretty small because we are making muffins here. If I was making a large pan of cornbread, I wouldn't be as concerned about them being small because I'd have larger pieces. But with this, we want to make sure that there's not like a big piece that spans the entire cupcake and kind of makes it bake strangely. So we're going to keep them nice and small. Run through these again.
So you're doing a fine dice?
Yeah, and again, these are kind of pickled, so they're hard to do that with. But if you had like a jalapeno relish or something, you could probably just use that straight up the way it is. That's basically what I'm kind of doing right now is I'm making a jalapeno relish. Great, so that's about a half a cup right there. Again, we're doubling the recipe, which is why I have a half a cup instead of a quarter. We'll pop that on there. Sweet. Okay, cool. So let's mix this together now and finally get some batter now that I've remembered all the things I forgot. Oh, it looks good already. So I like a whisk for this just because for me it feels like a sort of soft method. I don't usually get flour out of the pan. I hate making a mess with flour, which is usually why I don't bake, apart from just like sort of being a little bit scared of yeast. But it's a very easy to stir without sort of making a mess, which is why I do that. But of course you have to clean it out every now and then. So that looks pretty good. That's all I need to stir it. That's a batter just as is. But we are going to go in with our corn now and our cheese. I'm going to measure the corn just because I don't want too much in there. So we're going to go for a full cup, this is almost a cup, but I don't want to put the whole thing in there. Just because, again, we're doing muffins out of this, and so that corn will sort of get in the way. It's not going to be, we don't want like tons of corn up against the sides because when we take it out of the pan, they're just going to fall off. We want to make sure they stay sort of central as possible. So we don't want to overload with corn. And this is luckily 2 cups of cheese, so we are just going to put that entire thing in there, which is really nice. And cheese too is not going to do anything bad to this recipe. We could just put cheese in these cups and bake it, and that's going to be really tasty. So cheese is always a really safe addition usually, especially if it's a good melting cheese. Anything that's solid at room temperature is going to be something that is going to be a pretty easy addition in here for cheese. I wouldn't necessarily put brie in here without sort of a little bit of modification, but cheddar is an easy one. Beautiful, and that is done. That's our batter, good to go. We are going to And you can see it's pretty loaded in there. Here, let me see if we get it closer. You can see there's a lot of cheddar, a lot of jalapenos, a lot of corn in there. It is a stacked batter. There's not as much batter in between as you know, and that's okay. That's going to work really well for us. So we're going to go ahead and get our first one in. Got some spray here. You want to spray liberally, not only in the cup but a little bit around the edges just in case they overflow. They shouldn't overflow just because we're not going to fill them that much. But if you wanted to, you could totally purposely try and overflow these, which is kind of fun. They get nice little crispy edges, almost like a really big cupcake. Perfect. So that's good to go. We're going to go back to our quarter cup measure here, and we're just going to start filling these up. This is a good sous chef job if you got one. man, these look so good. I want to just like take a spoon of this right now. It'll be better once it's cooked, I promise. These are going to be huge too. I did this the other day and they turned out really, really, actually I don't know where they went. They got like really high, which was great, but this recipe has, with the cheese and the jalapenos, they shouldn't rise quite as much because we counteracted that baking soda with the jalapenos, and there's just a lot of more heavy stuff in there. So as it starts to rise, it's gonna have to get around that resistance. So great, these are ready to go. I'm gonna put them in the oven and we're gonna jump into our sweet recipe. So those go in the oven for 15 minutes. Perfect. So next one, it's basically going to start the exact same, but this time I'm going to actually remember my extra ingredients. So it's going to be a little bit smoother because of that. So I'm just going to wash up my my cup measure and my quarter cup here, just so we can use them again. Now, if I was cooking at home, I wouldn't have bothered washing these because I don't really mind so much with the jalapeno mixing with my blueberry, but I'm not going to put you guys through that. So, again, I'm an absolute freak for sweet and savory. Like, I just mixed these two batters together just to see what it was like, you know. Maple and jalapeno is actually a really nice combo. If you guys have never tried it, for a hot sauce, it's a lot of fun. Dry this out because we are going to be measuring flour with it. So on this next one that we're doing here, we are adding some extra flour and some extra cornmeal, and that's because we're also adding a quarter cup of maple syrup. And so maple syrup, unlike sugar, is 100% a liquid. It's not like a sort of cross experience where you can kind of treat it as a liquid or a solid depending on how you're serving it. Sugar being a liquid at heat, or a solid at sort of room temperature. And so we don't want, I could probably have just put that in there and it would have been okay because this recipe is incredibly resilient, but I don't want to worry about it. I want it to just work perfectly. And so I'm gonna put a little extra in there. It's also gonna give us a little bit extra cake, which is gonna be nice. So, all right, so back to cornmeal. Start with that. It's gonna be 2 cups again. For cornmeal, you can use a coarser meal. It's not really a problem for the recipe because we have an equal part of flour. If I was using like a very, very heavy cornmeal recipe with, maybe like 2 cups of cornmeal to 1 cup of flour, I'd want to make sure that I have a lighter grind. And that's because we're depending upon the starch, and you won't be able to get at that starch if the cornmeal isn't ground the right size. So, a nice coarse cornmeal, something close to almost like a polenta or like a grits, will work for this. But it's going to be crunchier, and you're going to need more flour to sort of back it up. And you can counteract that by soaking it, letting the batter sit for a while, adding your leavening in after it rests. But that's it's a little more complex than what we're trying to do today. But there's a lot of ways to sort of work with your grain depending on what you have available. We're using both very nice fine grain ground. Obviously, this flour is incredibly fine ground, but and the cornmeal is not that coarse. I like a little bit coarser, I think, like for me personally, but it's hard to know. Like, fine grounds will be different size, even though they're quote unquote fine, they'll still be different sizes. So, you kind of have to look at the cornmeal and see what you like for your own texture. So, but this is a very good brand. I really enjoy this stuff. I'll just put it out there so you guys can see. I'm not going to say anything about it. And that's just like what we have at our local grocery store anyways. But use anything you like. I know there's a pretty sweet grain company that has a fine ground that is a little bit coarser. That's what I usually use. Again, I'm not going to say exactly who that is, but that's a very nice one as well. All right, great. So we're going, again, the start is all the same. So it's going to be 4 teaspoons of baking powder. Perfect. And a teaspoon of baking soda because we're doubling the recipe. Lid here is giving me troubles. Perfect. Okay. And now, I am going to skip the salt this time because this is 100% a sweet dish. Salt is very good for bringing sweetness out, but I don't think in this dish it's necessary because we have brown sugar. Brown sugar is so beautiful and intense with its flavor that I think it's going to pick up the slack for us. Feel free to put it in for yourself. If you guys want me to put it in, you can raise your hand too, and I will. But I think we're going to be okay with it without it in this one. Again, with the savory one, we really want that cheddar and that jalapeno to come through. With this, we want the brown sugar to come through. So I'm not going to put anything in its way, and it doesn't need any help because it's dark brown sugar. If I was using light, I might use some salt in there just to sort of make it pop. But between this and the maple syrup, this thing is going to be absolutely delicious. So we're going to skip that for this one. Cool. So we are going to put our brown sugar in here. Maple syrup we're going to put in the liquid step. The brown sugar we'll put in here just so because it's so hard, we don't want to have a weird chunk of brown sugar in there. So we're going to make sure it gets incorporated now. And we are again doubling this, so it's going to be half a cup of brown sugar. I'm just going to slice this off at a nice. Perfect. And there's a lot of different recipes will have different ideas of whether to pack or not pack your brown sugar, and that's just a matter of how much they actually want you to put in here. This is pretty loose as far as what you want to do. I'm going to pack it because I want a lot of brown sugar in there, but you don't have to pack it. It's not going to. The recipe is not dependent on it like a lot of recipes are, which is why it doesn't say packed or unpacked. Great, brown sugar's in there. Let's get that broken up. Make sure we don't have any clumps. Mixed in, looking good. And it's already looking like a whole different beast now. A little bit darker color, which is great. And that's again just the brown sugar, but my brain is telling me this is going to taste deeper and darker and sweeter, which is exactly what I want. So I'm just looking for really big clumps of brown sugar while I'm doing this. Make sure I don't have them in there because we don't want those at all. That looks good. The small ones will be fine. They'll dissolve once we get the liquid in there. Great. So we've done cornmeal, flour, baking powder, baking soda. We skipped the salt this time around. We are down at the bottom again, and this is why you write recipes down, because I forgot my extra quarter cup of cornmeal and flour. I knew there was a reason why I bought this. It's like, why did I buy a whole new one?
Could you use Johnny cake meal?
Probably, yeah. I think that's, I'm not 100%, but I think that's cornmeal with the leavening already in it, I think. So you want to skip the leavening, but I do think, yeah, you could do that. Where's my quarter cup? Again, we want this nice and dry because we're doing the flour. So extra quarter cup. Each of these is just going to make sure this sets up. We don't, it would probably work without them, but it's going to do two things. It's going to make us more cake, and it's also going to ensure that it sets because all that extra starch is going to be in there. Beautiful.
So Chris, if you're doubling the batch, you don't have to double.
Oh my gosh, you guys are so smart.
Oh, okay.
You totally do. No, listen, sometimes my brain works really good.
Right, 'cause then it would be a half a cup.
I'm so happy you guys are here right now to keep me on my game. You got this is why I don't bake. Because at the end of the day, if I'd forgotten that, this would have turned out okay. And that's the best part about batters, is they really they don't care most of the time. You throw a couple eggs in there, you are going to be golden. Okay, beautiful. So now we're looking good. I'm going to go ahead and put my eggs in there. I'm going to throw 4 in this time. Again, these are medium eggs. If I was using large eggs, I probably wouldn't bother with the extra. But because I have more flour in there, and because I want this is a little bit sweeter, so I'm okay with it being a little bit more custardy, a little bit more eggy, because it's going to sort of evoke more of a dessert feel. I'm going to put the extra egg in there. You don't have to. It probably won't be any problems whatsoever. But these eggs are pretty small, and I have one left, so why not, right? The oil is going to go in the batter too. Yep, that's the next thing that's going in here, in fact. Beautiful oil. Again, it's going to be a half a cup. Sweet. And then 2 cups of milk, which should be, I think, the last of this. Got one more cup in there? Oh well. Math is hard, guys. Sheesh. Okay, sweet. So that's milk, that's egg, that's cornmeal, that's oil. That should be everything we need for this nice batter. We'll take a look at this. We did add some extra flour in there, so we might need to add some more egg, some more milk rather. Oh, that's right. We're adding maple syrup. I knew there was always something. Man, I just can't read today. Cool. I even had like a check method I was gonna do. All the best laid plans, you know. So we're gonna put a half cup, which I think is the rest of this maple syrup in there. Yeah, perfect. Might as well. That's what I like to hear. Get out of there. Okay, sweet. So that's the mid liquid. I knew there was liquid somewhere in there. So anyway, anytime you add something, you always have to sort of counteract it. You add a dry, you add a little bit more liquid. You add a liquid, you add a little bit more dry. You add sort of something weird like cheddar cheese. Sometimes you don't have to do anything. And you know, experimentation is going to be the only way to really figure that out. But generally, at the end of the day, when you're done mixing it together, if it looks the same batter-wise, it's probably going to cook the same, which is what we want. Again, this is why I really love the whisk, because I can just go to town, but I'm not really actually beating it. If I was using a spoon, I'd be creating gluten right now, but because there's just small little pieces, I'm not really actually doing a lot here except for moving things around. So that looks a little bit thicker, but that's okay. We want it to be thicker because this one's going to be more of a cake and less of a sort of savory bread. But they're both about the same texture, which is what we want. Actually, this one is apparently a little bit thinner. This is probably just set up because it's been sitting. The cornmeal will absorb that water, and even without cooking, it's going to start to set, which is kind of fun. Cool. So now we're going to do something fun. I'm going to set myself up here so I don't burn this table. It should be fine, but I always just want to be prepared. I usually have a kitchen towel, but they're not around. Yeah, hi. Man, I'm like off today. What's happening, guys? This is why we do a live audience. And so you guys can keep me honest because I don't even know. So I'm gonna mix these in. So these are big blueberries. I couldn't find small blueberries, but that's gonna be okay. They're gonna be really nice and tasty. And because we're doing a whole cake with this, if I was doing the muffins for this blueberry recipe, I would make sure that I had smaller blueberries because you don't want one blueberry. Or what I do is I add them at the end. I'd fill my muffins and then bloop, 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 the blueberries right into the center. But in this case, because we're doing a cake, this is not going to be problematic at all. They're going to get nice and evenly distributed. And that would have been really sad if I poured it in there. Thank you so much.
Could you use frozen berries and should you thaw them?
If you use frozen berries, the only thing that you're going to have problems with if you thaw them beforehand is the batter is going to turn blue, which can be fun. It can be really cool. And even if you don't thaw them, it's probably still going to turn blue because they're going to start to thaw as you mix them in there. I'm going to go ahead and check this one more time and just make sure we're good. I got cornmeal, I got flour, I got baking powder and soda. We skipped the salt. I've got my oil and eggs and milk. Again, we're not doing the corn kernels in this one, although you could. Go back down to the bottom, got my extra flour and cornmeal, got my brown sugar, got my maple syrup, got my fresh blueberries. We're lovely. We are doing everything right this time. Now I'm going to do the cool thing that's going to be a lot of fun. So first things first, I need a mitt so I don't burn myself. Ooh, those cheddar muffins are looking good. So I've got this. This is what we preheated earlier, so that oil is nice and hot in there. Ooh, the pan's nice and hot too. And we're going to take this and we're just going to always try and leave something on the part you're going to grab, by the way, because it's so, like if I put this here, it would have been so easy for me to just grab that later, especially with how my brains are working today. So always put something on your handle if you can. We're just going to take this batter and we're just going to plop it right in the center. And even now, the oil's not quite as hot as I would have liked. Usually it should be. You can kind of see it sort of frying a little bit. Oh, actually, that's good. That's good. Yeah, nice. We're just going to sort of spread that out. And now this batter is probably a little bit too much for this pan. So I'm not going to put. Yeah, I'm not going to put the whole thing in there because we're going to do a little experiment with this later. We're going to cook it just right in a pan on the stove over here, just to see what happens. Oh, it tastes good too. All right, we're just going to put that in there right away before this can start to get cool. And so we've got about 2 minutes left, which is great. That should bake for about 20 minutes. And so I'm going to, when that timer goes off, I'm just going to put a 20-minute timer on, and that should be perfect. But in the meantime, I'm going to get a pan out, and we're going to try and do a little bit of cooking with these. I'm going to have to do it back here, but we'll see what they look like when you sort of, we're going to make some proper hoe cakes. Sweet. Let's see how my butter's doing. I tried to soften this up. Oh, it's about perfect, actually. Great. This is just for you guys to slather on the top. Nothing's better than some cornmeal. Just a nice little piece of butter right in the center. It's so good. I'm gonna get us a little cutting board for you guys too while we're here. A little knife for you guys to cut on. I might need to run it down and get plates too. Oh no, they're here, good. I thought I did something to prepare us for this. 35 seconds, guys. So there's our first butter. I'll put 2 knives here so you can go off either end, and we can obviously hit into the next butter. Do not hold back. I have 2 more sticks just in case, you know. Cornbread really, you can put butter in the recipe instead of the oil, but I thought a half cup of butter was gonna be a little too much. When you see a half cup of melted butter, my heart goes boom. Not to say you shouldn't put it in there. It just it's a lot of butter in one place, and so it can be a little bit crazy. So we got this heating up. I'm gonna turn it off so we can see what these guys look like. We're gonna set our timer for 20 minutes for our other one. What do you guys think? Yeah? Not too shabby. So you can see the cheddar in there, obviously. Some of the jalapenos have popped up. And just like I thought, yesterday these rose like this high. It was crazy. Because there's the density of the cheese and stuff in there, they stayed this perfect, beautiful sort of muffin tin look. So we're going to put those down for there. We are going to knock these out, and I'm going to put another batch in right now. Let me just dry this guy off. Well, please do let me know if that happens again, because it was very sad that I missed the end of the last class. It was just like a little bit of the last class. So. All right, so we're hopefully going to just tip these, and they're all going to fall out. I'm used to doing this in like a kitchen, like a big kitchen, that has like a lot of space around me, so I might do them one at a time. I really wanted to, guys, but I just saw it going poorly, and this is your meal right here, guys. So as you can see, the sides are pretty crispy, but not as crispy as that's going to be because we didn't preheat this. If you wanted to, you could spray this down and preheat it. I wouldn't use spray though. I'd maybe use like butter or something that's a little bit more. So now I'm going to try and knock these out because we're getting a little bit. There we go. So that'll get you a little bit crispy, a little bit more crispy, I should say. Oh, that looks so good. Okay, sweet. Let's let those cool a little bit and set up, and we'll get our second batch going. And hopefully, if my timing is right, that timer is about at 15 minutes right now by the time I get these in there. And we won't have to worry about...
What are you using? Is that a canola oil or olive oil?
This one's an olive oil, but it doesn't matter. You can use anything you want. I would probably use a canola one or even like a butter flavor one or a proper butter one if you have it. That's just literally what we had in the closet. So that's kind of... This is a nice, like... For me, you know, cleaning out the closet is like a great part of cooking, and so this is very much a clean out the library's closet. So we have the corn in there too. Any questions though while I'm filling this up? How's everybody feeling about this? Everybody excited to try these first ones?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna cut them in half, I think, unless just so we don't have to wait, and then the ones that come out second, you know, people can take them home if they want to, or you know, staff can eat them, or whatever sort of works. Or I'll cut them all in half, and you can each have another half. That's totally fine too. I just want to make sure everybody gets a chance to eat now, but I also wanted to make sure we had lots and lots of food in case people were very hungry. So as you can see, a single batch would have filled this perfectly for just the one go, but a double batch goes right about to the top. Yeah, I probably should have gotten this for posterity. There's a lot of different ways. Yeah, our one spatula is in with the sweet one. But yeah, scraping the bowl is one of my specialties. I hate seeing things go to waste, so I always am usually a scraper. That should be about right. We'll let it fly. So again, I didn't put this on there, but I remembered. Thank goodness, because in my brain I said grab the pan, it'll be fine. Always try and protect yourself when you can, if you can. Ooh, that's looking really good. So those of you who've watched any of my cooking shows that I do at my house, I always reset my oven every time I open it. And so I've got this like nervous tick now. I just did it with this oven. Even though I know this oven's very good, I can't not do it. The last thing I want to do is open that oven and find out that the temperature's dropped. It just ruins the whole experience. So that's why I did that. And I suggest maybe doing it yourselves at home. A lot of times the oven is designed when you open it to know that it's been opened and reheat itself back up to the temperature you have it set at. But sometimes they're not very good at doing that. Sometimes they don't do anything. They're like, I don't need it, it'll be fine. It's still plenty hot in here. But if their temperature sensor's off in any way, you don't know. And when I did that, it still says preheating. So I am kind of like, now I know for a fact it's going to be preheated because it's going to beep when it's done. So just me being safe with baking, particularly because with cooking, if something doesn't cook enough, you can usually just heat it back up again. With baking, putting it back in the oven doesn't always do what you want it to do. So it's always best to sort of be prepared as much as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these guys in half, and you guys can start to come up now and grab them for eating. We're just going to kind of do it all at once. You guys are welcome to sort of come up with a strategy of how you want to, if desired. But I'm just going to put these out here, and you guys are going to come up and grab one each. And please do, while they're hot, take a little slice of that butter and just put it right on top of them.
No, I don't like it that way. I do put sugar on the bottom.
Yeah, well, that's a good idea, actually.
All the
Well,
time.
these smell really good. I'm gonna get in there too with you guys. Not too shabby. I'll take that as a win.
Oh, they're nice and hot. That's what you should eat cornbread.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta eat it straight out of the oven.
Never put jalapenos on it.
It's so good that way. Oh, it's my favorite.
I've done corn. but never jalapenos.
Oh man, I'm excited about that one. That was a good one.
Yeah.
Great. So that's my oven preheated, and my timer is right at 15 minutes. So we're right on the money.
What did these jalapenos say? Mild?
Yeah. So they call them
Tame.
sliced tame,
Tame.
and it says medium heat on here, but generally any pickled jalapeno is going to be quote unquote tamed because the pickling process you're cooking them, and that a lot of that heat goes into the brine. So generally, if you're getting a pickled jalapeno, it's going to be a lot better. There are certain pickled jalapenos that work against that process, and they try and make themselves as spicy as possible, and those ones will say hot. But yeah, in general, this brand is a good one to go for. Even their like hot banana peppers aren't actually hot. They're intense, but they're not really hot. So
Yeah.
I like these guys, and that's also what we carry at this local store. So that's helpful.
Okay.
Now we got those to eat with lunch.
There we go.
Leftovers, but
Oh yeah. Yeah, if they're again, there's gonna be more coming out too. So once everybody's sort of had a half, if anybody wants to come up and grab some more, that's fine because there will be more coming. So, but we're gonna do a little bit of an experiment here with a hoe cake in the pan. So I'm gonna get this pan hot. We're gonna bring it over. Oh, there's more plates. Oh yeah. I didn't think we'd use them.
It's just a very nice little mild jalapeno.
Yeah, it's not bad at all, right? You can use fresh jalapenos if you want it to be more spicy. If you use fresh jalapenos too, you wouldn't necessarily need that extra baking soda because they don't have any acid in them at all. So that's definitely a good call. Ouch! Hey, listen.
yeah,
No judgment in this room, okay? we eat heavy here.
I like that.
Okay, cool. Oh, this is gonna be so good. I need a spatula. I wasn't sure how much that was gonna fill that pan again because the recipe's for a 9-inch and we're working with a 12-inch, so I figured I'd double it and just make sure. But this was always kind of a plan. I was gonna see how this see how these work as a sort of pancake or quote unquote hoe cake. So we're in experimental territory right here, which is exactly where I want to be all the time.
Very light, very moist.
Yeah, not too shabby,
I wonder
right?
if those peppers don't have seeds in them. I find
They
if
definitely,
I,
yeah.
If I take the seeds out at home, it's not spicy.
Yes. They don't. Yeah, that's actually a good point too. They don't. A lot of times pickled jalapenos will still have the seeds, but those
And
don't
that's
have any at all.
spicier.
Yeah,
Spicier
exactly.
with the seeds.
Yep. That's actually a really good insight. I think that might be what they mean by tamed.
Because they're not really hot.
Yeah, exactly. They just taste good, which is what that's what jalapenos are all about.
They said it's not spicy.
Not spicy. Hi, Mama.
Hi, honey.
Chris,
Yeah.
I usually mix with a fork,
Sure.
but you mix with a whisk, and these are very nice and light, so I think I should change.
The whisk is just easy because it does a lot without actually doing anything. Like it mixes without not mixing. It combines without mixing. But you have to like knock it out every now and then. But yeah, the fork is a good method. Similar concept. The tines work to mix without to combine without mixing. Almost like if you're folding. It's a very similar process. So I just like the whisk because you can do it faster. Fork's too small for me. If you had a big fork, that'd be the way to go. Okay, cool. We got this thing going. So theoretically, this hoe cake's going to work perfectly, but I have no idea what's going to happen right now. So we're all in this together.
Very good.
Thanks. Yeah. Are they good? I know. It's amazing.
I could eat this every day.
Yes.
Plus ice cream.
It's some of the cornmeal, but it's also just that those pans are really good. They're in the oven, but those pans have a very thick bottom. Those are like, that's a commercial pan. I don't know where we got that from, but when I saw it, I was like, yes. That's like something you normally see in like in a big restaurant or something like that. So yeah, thick, because a lot of times like homemade ones, like they have very thin bottoms. Like they're not really made of much because it's aluminum, it's cheap. But this one's got some steel in there. It's heavy. And it's got a thick bottom, and because of that, it holds the heat really, really well, much like the cast iron is going to be doing right now. And you could definitely up if you have thin bottoms at home, I wouldn't preheat them, but if you have something like that that's thick, put it in your oven beforehand, like I did with the cast iron, and then spray them down before, or if you're worried about your oil burning, spray them down when they come out, and that's going to help you get a nice crispy bottom as well. And even some of the edge ones here were a lot crisper, you can kind of see, depending. So, yeah, they're good. This is probably my favorite way to eat cornbread, apart from cornbread stuffing, which is just like my love of life.
I'm always so used to doing things in the cast iron.
Yeah, well, the cast iron is like such a good way to cook, but little muffins are like just so much fun. Well, actually, now that I got a little bit of time, let me show you these from yesterday. So these are my experiments from yesterday. That is no salt. That's no salt or sugar, and you can see how much they rose. It's crazy because there was nothing, like there's no cheese or jalapenos to sort of counteract them. The vinegar and the jalapenos killed the baking soda, which is why they didn't do this. That's all the baking soda, that little center sort of
That's like
tower.
when you see in Cooks Illustrated, they'll have, muffins or cupcakes.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
there's the correct shape of the dome or something like
Yep.
that, or a cake.
This is perfect. I'm surprised how perfect these turned out actually, because I saw this yesterday. I'm like, it'll be fine.
That's a whole
And these are
tower.
decent, but these are like dippers because there's no salt or sugar in them, so they don't really taste like much but corn. But I've been eating them for lunch. They're actually pretty tasty. If you guys want to try them, I can put them out. I don't know if anybody wants to go into like unseasoned cornbread, but I'll cut them up just in case anybody gets crazy. And again, they're cold too, so they're not as good as these ones, but I will not be offended if you leave those there. All right, so we got a nice hot pan here. I'm gonna go ahead and bring this over here, spray it down, put a little bit of this in here, and we'll see what happens.
Is this yours?
Yeah, that's the one. That's literally no sugar or salt.
I'll
So
bet you some. I'll try.
be prepared. It just tastes like corn. It's actually pretty tasty.
Yeah, I love cornbread.
But it's a lot easier to taste the the baking soda and powder in that. So
Right.
I'm just going to put this on the pan. It actually is looking pretty good so far. We're going to see what happens.
Is that how you make whole cake?
What?
Is that how you make whole cake?
No, this is new. This is a new.
Oh, okay.
We're going into unknown territory right now. No, I would say for me, if I was going to do this more at home, I'd probably make them a lot smaller. And I wouldn't put blueberries in them, but this is just extra batter I wanted to sort of experiment with. And I'd use my cast iron almost guaranteed. I'd be on a pan. I'd probably try and do that 12-inch. I'd probably try to do 4 of them, about like an English muffin-y size. It's like that's like I think the go-to. But I'm just kind of in experimental zone over here. I mean, it looks good. It's already.
temperature do you have?
I have it on medium high.
Medium.
Yeah, and it's already starting. It's already set up, which is great. And these are going to cook way fast. Like if you're just like hungry and need cornbread in your face, doing it in the pan is going to be the fastest way because you're going to have more direct heat in the oven. The radiant heat, takes 15 minutes to cook these, but this is probably going to be done in about 5 minutes. Did my timer get turned off? Uh-oh. Well, that's okay. We're going to take a look. I think it smells like it's done. So this is why you have a little poker method. We're going to try center the cake. Oh, that's not done yet. Oh, okay, cool. We're gonna go another 5 minutes.
Good timer I can carry around with me. So I know.
I'm not sure how my timer got turned off, but oh well. So generally, you're gonna know it's done because it's gonna look like these ones. At the edge is gonna be nice and brown. The center, when you shake it, the center's not gonna move at all, and then you're gonna be able to. We're gonna test this. I'll show you guys. You're gonna be able to put a stick in the center, and it's gonna come out clean. That's like classic cake testing. It's called cornbread, but it is really more of a cake. And a lot of people will sort of tell you that very strongly that cornbread is a cake, similar to zucchini bread. If you guys have ever had some of that from our local establishments, that's a cake too. It follows all the cake recipe sort of standards. I don't know what exactly determines what is a cake in your bread. I think it's gluten personally. I think that's like once you start developing gluten as a part of the process, then you've officially gone into bread territory, as opposed to obviously gluten-free breads kind of break that, but they're also kind of cakey at the end of the day. What's up?
I have a question.
Yeah.
As you know, I use olive oil for my cakes.
Yeah.
And I know olive oil doesn't do well with high heat, but it makes my cakes moist. Everybody
Oh,
knows
yeah.
because they're moist. What's the difference in recipe?
Yeah, you could just use olive oil for sure, because this isn't getting over that high. Olive oil has a lower smoke point, which means when you put it in like a really hot pan for searing or cooking, it's going to smoke and it's going to burn faster. But in this case, because we're baking it, the oil recipe is pretty well protected, so you can use basically anything you want. I'm using
What it does to change the consistency?
probably. You mean like why is olive oil? Why is it making your cakes more moist? I think it's just a matter of that it's a more rich flavor. I think it's kind of almost like the brain is just being like, ooh, that tastes better, so it's also more moist. So this is way too big. We're gonna try and flip it though, anyways. Ooh! And I was talking to you guys, so I kind of burnt it a little bit, but that's okay. It's basically a giant pancake. It's a corn pancake, right? So we're gonna pop this on here, try and get it cooked all the way through, and we'll see what it looks like when it's done. I'm gonna turn it down a little bit. I think right now I was at 8. I think I'm at like 6.5 now. I think that's gonna be a lot better. So, but yeah, olive oil I think tastes richer. There's something because it has that lower smoke point. I think it's something to do with the way the oil is organized at like a molecular level. It does tend to, like, even when I drink different oils, I don't like drink them often, but like when I'm like tasting different oils for like, a crudo or something like that, like a raw fish dish, lighter oils that have higher smoke points tend to taste lighter too. Like they don't taste as wet and sort of filling, whereas olive oil sort of tends to be more of a coating oil. I think that's part of it. Like something molecularly is different between them. So lower smoke points I think are generally more rich and thick, which give you that sort of this is moist feeling, whereas higher smoke points tend to be thinner. And very good for cooking, but might not give you that sort of mouth feel. So I think it's kind of a little bit of a psychosomatic thing. It tastes richer, and so your mouth goes, this is also moist, because you're creating more moisture in your mouth because that taste is more intense. I don't think that it's technically moisture. I think it is kind of like it's a response, a body response. That's just me making things up, though. I don't have any like science behind that. That's like my general vibe is like what I've experienced myself in cooking. But you can easily make the switch to olive oil for this recipe for both of them. Olive oil is great in savory and sweet dishes, no problem whatsoever. It's just more expensive too, which is part of why I don't always use it for this program. But it's a very good oil for putting in baked goods for sure.
Years ago,
Yeah.
there was a diet. I was thinking about a good 60 years ago. There was a diet where you drank, you took a tablespoon of oil and you ingested it then with a glass of water.
Okay.
And the idea was you coated your stomach and then you would feel full and you would eat less.
Yeah, I mean,
So
that's a vibe. I think that seems like a. If I ate oil,
Feel.
yeah, exactly. It does. It sort of turns your taste buds on, and I think that's got some sort of. When I eat very oily foods, I don't want to eat much more either. So sort of starting with oil, your body's like, whoa, hold up there. What are you eating? So I wonder if that's more of like, again, sort of like a psychosomatic thing where it like turns your body. It says, hey body, you're eating too much oil. Stop eating, and then your body goes, okay, cool, I won't eat as much.
A tablespoon of oil in your mouth and your body. Wow, you don't need to eat any more food.
Yeah, the only problem with that is that a tablespoon of oil is like 200 calories or something like that. So it kind of counteracts itself. It's one of like the fat is literally the most dense of the calories. So or the dense per gram of the sort of food
Then
types.
you don't eat 800 calories of food.
I guess that's the plan. I'm gonna go over here and make sure we don't burn this thing. Although I think I might already be past that. So it's nice and fluffy. Ooh, this feels good.
Oh yeah.
Wow, it's so cool. It's like a little pancake. It even sounds like a pancake. Okay, cool. We'll try this again with the other one, but I think my cornmeal, one of these might be done, either cornbread or the big cake. Oh yeah, that's looking good. The cake's starting to look good. It's starting to crack on the edges too, which is a good sign. I'm going to leave it in there just because they're so big. And we're going to test these and see if these are good or not. Yeah, those are perfect. Great. So I'm going to take these out, and then I think the cake will be done as well. We'll be ready to rock. Again, if I was in a kitchen, I would just bam. But I don't want to mess anything up around here. Perfect. Come on, little guy. I didn't spray. See, sometimes the edges. There we go. If you don't clear the edges good, they'll stick. Perfect. So I'll let these cool a little bit before you guys come up. I will gladly cut these in half if we think we're going to need to, but I think we're probably in a place where people can take whole ones if they want, take them home if they want. Ouch. Ouch. Nice. And part of this is that I probably should have, if I was doing this professionally, or if I was worried about, super worried about quality, I probably would have cleaned this pan before I, put more stuff in there. Because, you end up getting little artifacts from the past, and that's what stuff sort of tends to stick to. Let's go ahead and load this pan, see if I can do another blueberry pancake that doesn't get so burnt. Although, honestly, that's probably going to taste really good. All that sugar in there, the little burnt brown sugar, is going to be a really nice flavor. Do a couple smaller ones.
Oh, that maple syrup caramelized.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, they just melted into one big one. Oh, well. So again, small pan, you're going to have a little bit harder time doing this, but let's cut this open and see what it sort of looks like. That other cake is going to be done in just a second, too. So yeah, perfect. See, it's just like a nice little piece of bread, cornbread. Oh, it smells really good. Whew. Again, it's a little burnt, so it might not be quite as good as the cake we've got in the oven. But I'll cut this up if anybody wants to. They're welcome to try it. Experiments are always fun and extra. All right, let's see what this big guy looks like. See if we can take him out. Oh yeah. So he's pretty close. Big boy. And you can see the edges are getting nice and crispy. We're just going to check the center, which is really the main thing we have to worry about here. A little bit. I'm going to try the other end just in case. It's really close though, like really, really close. I think like 2 minutes even maybe. I probably, honestly, if I just like took that out and left it for like 10 minutes, like it would probably finish cooking, but I want to try and get it in you guys' mouths as soon as possible, so. Cool. I'm just gonna try this just to make sure. So the blueberries looking good. You get that nice big blue. If they were smaller, obviously you'd have like a little bit better distribution, but oh, it smells good. That'll do. Nice and sweet. Definitely can taste the like little crispy edges. Oh man, you guys are really gonna like this cake. I can tell you right now by that sample. He's gonna be good. We just gotta make sure it's cooked all the way. Does anybody else have any questions? I guess realize it kind of got a little dark in here. I always like to see my food off.
Yeah, well, you know, this is the shortest day of the year.
Yeah, I know, right? That's the crazy thing. Yeah, right? It's like it's literally actually getting started. Okay, beautiful. All right, how much time we got? Almost there. Let's go make sure we don't burn this one. Okay, so for those of you who were at the crate program, you've seen me do this before, but I'm going to show you guys for those of you who missed it. You want to kind of get it set up on the edge like that. That's kind of the prime. And then I'm not going to throw it at you guys, but you want to throw it forward and then sort of pull it back at the last moment. So that's how you get the flip done. That one looks a lot better, by the way. That one I would suggest eating when we get there. Yeah, do this at home. Please go experiment, try it out. I guarantee you, it's. I saw it looks like two of you were brave enough to try my my unseasoned cornbread. It was unseasoned, right? Yeah, I see it. No, it's way better with salt and sugar. Like a lot better with salt and sugar. Even salt alone would have made that a better experience. But and the sugar really brings it together. Sugar adds a lot of that sort of crispy edges, and for me, because I've been eating a lot of like low salt food lately, sugar almost sort of takes the place of salt. It activates my taste buds. It brings the flavors together in a place where my mouth can go, ooh, I taste that. Ooh, I taste that. And that's really what salt is doing. Is it turns your taste buds on so you can taste things better. And sugar kind of does that. Oh yeah, this one's done. Ooh, baby. Okay, so I can already tell this one's done because the browning has gone all the way to the center now. It was still a little bit wet there. We'll test it just in case, but that last one came out so close. I think we're in good place. So there's pieces on there, but those are cooked pieces. I think it's just because I'm using a big stick. If I use a smaller one, we're going to come out pretty clean. Again, that's not batter that I'm pulling out. That's actual cooked cornbread. So. Yeah. What's that?
Don't forget about the pan.
Oh, thanks. You're the best. You guys are great. Best. You're like the best having like a whole kitchen of sous chefs basically. So this is marble, so it's going to be fine. You saw earlier I put down a paper towel. That's just mainly so you don't make any marks on it. But I think this cast iron is pretty new, so it shouldn't mess anything up. Oh, this is looking nice too. Look at that one. That was nice and floofy. Pop that out. Put another one in there. It's our last of our batter. Our little weird pancakes. So now we get to the big, dangerous part. I'm going to try and take this blueberry loaf out onto the cutting board. If I am at all worried about it breaking, I'm just going to cut it in the pan. I think it's going to work out well. Let's see what happens. So we're going to go around the edge. Oh, it already feels like it's pretty loose, which is nice. We're going to see. Feels good. Feels good. Feels good. Oh yeah, sweet. So we're going to put this on top. I didn't get there though. I didn't get there. It pays to talk about it a lot, you know? And then we're going to flip. Shake it. Baby. Nice. And the pan's clean. I don't even have to clean it. I'm going to put it back in the oven. Done and done. And we need to buy a new oven mitt. I'll make sure to put that on the list. Okay, sweet. So this is totally done. Beautiful. There's a little spot down here where some of my brown sugar maybe I didn't cut in perfectly. Kind of melted and made a little bit of caramel. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to cut this in half first. Oh, it's so hot still. I'm actually going to let it hang for just a second. Because it's still kind of cooking right now. We do want it to cool just a little bit because what's going to happen is it's going to set. The crumb is going to get really nice. It's going to be sort of a more tasty experience. Let's cut these up. Let's see. Yeah, that turned out even better. Blueberry. Meantime, we'll get this guy flipped too. This one's even easier because he's nice and small. Boop. But please do experiment with that. It's like the most fun thing ever. When I was younger, I couldn't do that. I was like, there's no way I'll ever be able to do it. And I was just sitting in the kitchen one day, playing around, and it kind of happened on accident, and I was like, oh. Like the physics in my brain clicked, and it just practice every now and then. You might mess up your stove for a couple times, but you'll get there eventually. And it's the most fun experience to just sit there and just flip your food. Like it's also a really good way to stir it, because usually when you're stirring like this stuff has to stay at the bottom. When you flip the food, the stuff at the bottom gets put on top pretty regularly. So it's actually one of the most efficient ways to actually stir as well. So it doesn't just look good, it's very, very practical. I'm going to try and flip this. Whoop, nope. It's going to be easier to cut from this side, I think. Oh, baby. Not too shabby, guys. So it's a little dense just because, I am cutting it into it pretty early. But it looks like the crumb's pretty much cooked all the way through. It's going to be a little wetter around the blueberries. That's, because they're blueberries, but this looks great. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 17. Okay, how do we cut a circle into 17 pieces? So half of that was going to be 8. So we need each one of these to be at least 8. I think we can do that pretty easily. I'm going to cut it again this way. And this would be a lot easier if I let this cool more, but I don't have any patience for that. And it's going to taste a lot better like this, so we're going to do it that way. Oh man, it's so nice. I'm going to move that over. I'm going to start cutting these. If you guys want to bring up your plates, we're going to start serving this up right now. These are a little bit bigger. This is definitely more of like a cake situation here.
Are these moister than the other ones?
They probably will be a little bit more. Yeah, because of the blueberries and the maple syrup as well. Maple syrup is a little bit harder to get sort of absorbed by the dough, so it should stay pretty. Man, these look so good. Okay, awesome. Who wants to go first? Come on up here. I won't be able to cut the middle ones.
Go first.
Oh, I gotta get out?
You don't have to. I'll come to you if you want.
Yeah,
All right, cool. Here, let me get you. Yeah, I guess whoever likes edges should come up first, because these are the edges pieces.
That's what I thought.
Here, I can serve you guys if you need it too. It's pretty hot. Ready to go? I can get you guys forks if you want them to, but I think you should be able to take them down with your fingers. If anybody is preferable to more corner slices, I can get them. I'm going to start cutting the centers up too. Now I have some space. So that was 8. So yeah, so we should be able to cut these. Yeah, please take anything you like that's up here. It's all for grabs now. Are you edge center? Edge is good. This one looks good. Perfect. All right. Beautiful. Jay, let me get you this guy. I think that's a good one for you. Yeah, exactly. There we go. Of course.
don't grease too hard on it.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, Chris, this is wonderful.
I'm so happy you guys like it.
Yes.
It is. It's wonderful.
Yes.
This is amazing.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Wow. I'm going to take a little piece of this. Because
Yeah, oh yeah, please
so wonderful.
take anything you like. It is all up for grabs. Yeah. Yeah, of course. I'll leave that there for everybody else. And guys, that is going to be the end of our official program. You guys can now just kind of snack, relax. Feel free to keep coming back up, grab some stuff if you want to. I made the cornbread for everybody yesterday, so they were, they got to sort of try. Try these. Honestly, if you like burnt flavor at all, it's nice. It's really nice.
Excellent.
It's got a little extra caramelization. Oh yeah, you want to cut this for you?
Or I can,
Yeah. Here, I'll cut
you can have half and I'll have half.
So I want to thank you guys all for coming, first off, and I want to let you know that while the batter series is over, we are going to be doing a new series in January, from January through June. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but just keep in mind that it's going to have to do with some looks, and maybe you will like what I make. And that's where we're going to stop.